Good evening. This is Chantaye McLaughlin, and this is Unjust. So tonight, Shaka is going to be joining us in a few. We're going to be talking about over sentencing. So what that looks like is I have different inmates mail me all the time, especially for armed robbery charges, because it's so vague. Like you have these different guys and women who are sitting in prison for charges like armed robbery when either there was no weapon or even in the cases where there was a weapon, they're getting life without parole when nobody was harmed. So what does over sentencing look like, right? Like, do you believe that if someone's harmed that they should get life? If no one's harmed, they shouldn't get life? Like, what does it look like? And here comes Shaka. So Shaka, good evening.
Good evening. How you doing?
I'm good. I've coughed up my lung all weekend.
Right, right. Is you feeling better?
A little bit, a little bit. I've rested a lot, but I was talking about over sentencing, especially with armed robbery. Like, um, we have these people sitting there doing life without parole for robbery when no one was harmed, and then we have people who do murder and manslaughter and get like 20 years and they're released from prison. So how are we even quantifying and qualifying these different charges? And who's, you know, why are these people being over sentenced?
Um, well, it varies. Depends on what state you're in. Depends on, like I've always said, everything is based on a point system where, and I'm speaking from an adversary standpoint, that they go by credit history, education, employment history, uh, family and community ties, assets, bank account. Then they go to your prior convictions or any type of criminal history, and then they add all of that up, and they determine not only whether you're going to be an asset or liability to society, or if you are going to be an asset, more of an asset, being going back in slavery under the 13th Amendment in prison. Um, but also, they, um, just say for instance, like a Commonwealth state, you know, uh, they sentence as they go, and if
Wait,
once
wait, wait,
again,
slow down, slow down. What do you mean they sentences they go with a Commonwealth state?
well, it's no set laws in terms of how you are sentenced, even though they have laws and statutes set up, but it's still the sentencing is still done on an individual basis, such as you and I could have the same criminal history, the same point system. Both of our points add up equally. Now it depends on the judge, which judge you get, what mood they in, whether you get the max, the minimum, or you get over sentence, or they go outside of the guidelines. Because a lot of them do that. They take cases personally, and especially when race is involved. When race is involved, and when I say race, I mean even uh, certain whites and non-black people are considered degenerates in terms or in comparison to the hierarchy and those who benefit from the hierarchy, meaning white privilege. So if anyone under that, anyone under those statutes are considered degenerates. So you become expendable in the judicial system.
Are you
And
talking about
this is
socioeconomics or just the white guys that date black women, the black men that date, or the white women who date black men? Like what quantifies and qualifies as degenerate? in your opinion, and from what you've seen and been
Social
exposed to?
economic, basically. Social economic, race mixing, because they take that far more deep and personal and have a deep-seated hatred for those who have interracial marriages and things like that in those Commonwealth states, as well as those southern states and states that we all know that have particular agendas targeting the people, the levels that I just prescribed and explained, far as those under the well-to-do, the black gatekeepers, and the hierarchy. Anything under that is considered degenerate. The lower class, anybody in the lower class in this day and time are expendable. And so this is why I don't know how it is in Atlanta, but I know in the Washington, D.C. and Virginia area, most of the poor whites and white convicts, brothers that have been convicted, that have done prison time, most of them have those jobs as roofers and other um, physical manual labor jobs, opposed to those who are considered productive members of society, which, in my opinion, they're the more dangerous and more worse, the more perverse, the more sinister than those who are considered being at subordinate levels. But when you talk about sentencing and over sentencing, 90% of especially black people, 90% of black people are over sentenced daily.
Yes.
And they are forced and motivated by fear of taking things to trial, based on these public pretenders who pretend as though they're in your corner, and they'll come out and they put on these acts that it doesn't look good today. It's best that you take this deal because they have this amount and that amount of evidence in which we don't investigate,
Right.
and most of the time,
Yes,
deep down inside, and really, when you look at it, uh, most of us have a good shot at beating cases, at winning in trials, but based on the fear of losing in trial, because dealing with a stacked deck, it's hard unless you have overwhelming substantial evidence of, beyond the shadow of a doubt, you know. But when they go into deliberation, basically, you're pretty much done, because these jurors are biased as well. And this is why they're very selective and don't allow those who have experience being railroaded and being over sentenced to sit on the jury and be fair and just. So, you know, so over sentencing is pretty much normal, because most of us are looking for the quickest way home. Most people are looking for the quickest way home. They're willing to take the conviction. They're willing to uh, give opportunities of being government employees or being in the military and things of that nature for the quickest way home. So they'll take the conviction, and work in the private sector the rest of their lives. And this
right,
is how it's set up. This is exactly how it's set up. It's just not no one or two cases where people are over sentenced. You know,
right. You're right.
Mostly all of our people are over sentenced daily. And I know this from being in a product of over sentencing, and what they do daily. The penitentiaries and the state facilities give head counts and bed spaces that are available. That count goes to the county clerk. The clerk passes it on to the judge. and then they weigh out the dockets. The most serious ones get first. They're going in those beds first,
Right.
but they're going to fill them all up, even though you may qualify for probation, home detention, work release, or things of that nature. By those beds being empty, and the funding will be cut short. They have to fill those beds up, and
Right.
so it's a business. It's not, it's about uh uh good and evil, good versus evil, the poor versus the rich, um the peasants versus the so-called royalty. So
Right.
and once you're over sentenced, and I'm just talking from a personal experience that I didn't realize that I was until I got into the law libraries and began to study the annotated codes and case law, and realized what had happened. By that time, by taking these pleas, you waive your rights to appeals, and you may qualify, depending on your institutional behavior, a, a date for reconsideration in terms of a sentence reduction or what have you. But they know that 90% of the time that reconsideration will be is not going to be on the table because of the encounters that you may have in prison, which results in infractions, tickets, going in solitary, and things of that nature. So it's not even worth even applying for reconsideration when when they ask how your institutional conduct has been, although you're in there standing on your own platform and being a true man and not just going for anything, um, you know, it's off the table. And so I know in Maryland, if you're caught 3 times, you can go in Walmart and get caught 3 times still in a leather jacket, and that's 25 years with no parole.
Whoa, you said 25 years with no parole.
Yes.
Wow. Now I do know here one of my friends, her husband went to prison. I think he was there for either 5 years or 7 years for stealing bleach.
Oh,
Bleach.
hmm. And they go by and they get and see that goes and you go that goes as far as into the investigation where these corrupt cops will go into these stores and uh, uh, get testimonies and lies, force the employees to lie and say, well, this individual been in here for the last 3 weeks and we let him go and all this stuff, knowing he might have only been in there that one time. But this is how they build the case up. So it'd be justification to put someone away for years for some bleach, and once again, they go back to your assets, education, community ties, whether you have bank accounts, whether you have vehicles, family support. They go by all of that. And while you're in the detention center prior to being sentenced, they get a copy of your visitor list to see who came, how many times they came, how much money been put on your books. And see, that it's a reflection on people in the community or family support. They look
Yeah,
at all of this. And I'm telling you from experience, they look at all of this.
I
You
believe
know,
you.
so when and we have brothers in there that I know that have been shoplifting, little minor stuff, excessive loitering, on work release, on work camps, just for hanging in front of the 7-Eleven and panhandling change and maintaining a public nuisance and rogue and vagabond. These charges that don't require any type of jail time. Most of the time, it just requires court ordered rehabilitation, drug and alcohol rehabilitation, and mental health evaluations. But they can place you somewhere where you can be an asset. Because about a month ago, I did a video on how many corporations benefit. Microsoft, Google, IKEA. People think IKEA is one of these old bourgeois furniture stores where they spend all this money like they've arrived. The Negro, uh, doesn't shop at the at the regular furniture stores. We don't do that. We're too good for that. So we'll go to IKEA, not knowing that all of the furniture at IKEA is made by prisoners. All of it.
Wow, I didn't know that.
All of it. All of it.
I didn't know that.
All of it. They do. They make tennis shoes for Walmart. Uh, Ross and Perrine, all the dog and cat food is grinded up. When they take horses, dead animals, and grind that stuff up and make dog and cat food, that's done by inmates. Purdue, Frank Purdue, how they advertise their chickens, the chicken necks are broken. I worked on Frank Purdue's farm on a work camp program, breaking chicken necks, you know, um, which I had refused to do. So I worked in the part where, you put the chickens on the assembly line and before they get boiled. But we had brothers that was, and it was mandatory. They had to break 4 necks at a time. I mean, you had to grab 2 live chickens with each hand and snap their necks, or else they put you in handcuffs and send you back and you go on lockup for, they'll label it as work refusal. So
Damn.
this is why, I have no compassion, no understanding, no cut card. Nobody gets a pass, because after you have spent years and you watch Christmases and New Year's and all these different holidays, and you see people, some people, I saw a lot of people go home and come back 2 and 3 times. When you see all of this stuff takes place, you know, um, you understand life a little more better, and you can see a clear picture of what's going on, and that's one of the reasons why our people, we continue to put these blinders on and want to be politically correct and make sure we don't say this and don't say that. That's just a form, that's another form of slavery. That's like
Really
being a
is.
slave and not being, and being caught reading a book or being caught learning how to read, because you have to watch everything you say. You can't slip up and let anybody know on the plantation that you read a book, because some of the people that look like you will go report you. And it's the same way today. It's the same exact way today. Everybody wants the bag. Everybody wants a social media platform to get paid. To give watered down, keep hope alive mentalities to our people instead of going head on like you do with the laws and being fearless and uncompromising. We're standing up, and there are not a lot of people that are doing that. This is the part that pisses me off, that you have those who are not just in position, but those who have the ability to link arms and to learn uh, unshamingly, you know, from people that look like them, how to go about dealing with these particular situations. And like I always tell you, I stay in my lane. I'm not the last show. I was more like a student. I'm always a student, but I was, taking a lot of mental notes about a lot of stuff because I'm willing to, humble myself and hold on to the coattails of those who know how to deal in particular areas, and that's stand behind people, stand beside them, because standing behind people means that you out front alone. And you know what happens, and we have a history of those who stand out. And so, a lot of people don't look into the judicial system, and once again, I don't blame them, because we're put in a position, and I'm talking about those of us who are considered living and being labeled subordinates and being labeled the have-nots, that they're so busy trying to survive and fight off so many other forces of evil that continues to plague the communities, that they really don't have the time. They have the energy, they have the fire, they may not have the knowledge. And so that's where people like you yourself, and I've heard people give up. I've heard people, get frustrated. I've seen people say they down, and then 2 years later, you have to find out whether they still living. But 2 years ago, they were, they were on fire. They was, standing up, yelling, and blowing the sound in the trumpet. And then a couple of years later, you have to actually look for them to see if they still breathing. Because this is a lifelong journey, and people don't realize that. I've been doing this stuff for 20 years, not 20 days, not 20 months. I didn't come on social media 4 years ago, 5 years ago. I've been on YouTube and all these other doing lectures all over the country since 2003. When there was nothing but DVDs that you can buy of the lectures, and you had to actually come in for the lectures, which, a lot of people took advantage of the poor by overcharging them to hear certain information. All of my lectures have been free, all of them, and so we need to, you know, um, stand beside those who have been so diligently and like yourself, you've had experiences. We've all tasted the underworld. We've all
Yeah.
hand danced and line danced with the devil. You know, and it's those who haven't had those experiences that think none of those experiences will ever happen to them, or they don't exist, or they're not possible. They have a tendency to continue to have faith and trust in this uh, criminal, unjust system, where the woman with the scales with the blindfolds, but she has
Yeah.
bifocals on. And then blind, she can see straight through that blindfold. One eye is open, so she can see which side of the scale needs the most weight to it.
Shaka, you said a lot. And, I was remembering when you were talking, I was remember being at Georgia Regional. Excuse me for coughing and my voice. This COVID is kicking my butt. But
Right.
I remember being at Georgia Regional, and one, I had no one visiting me because all of the visitors, including my family, they were like, it's a violation of my HIPAA rights for them to tell them where I'm at. So I almost lost my son to DFACS. I almost lost a lot of my rights because nobody could find me. They just moved me to Georgia Regional one day, and they wouldn't tell anybody where I was at. And so the psychiatrist kept saying, just take the plea deal. You're not competent to stand trial, just take the plea deal. I said, for what? For criminal trespassing? You want me to take a plea deal for criminal trespassing? But she wanted me to take unmedicated, not stable on my meds, and they were trying to force a plea deal of 5 years for all of these charges of terroristic threats, aggravated assault, possession of a knife, and the commencement of a felony. And there wasn't even a victim attached to them. but they wanted me to take a 5-year plea deal. So I'm saying that to say sometimes, and we stigmatize people who have records when we don't even know the whole situation, because what would have happened had I taken that plea deal, and then they were charging me with the terroristic threats, because the only reason for like 2 months they wouldn't transport me to court, they kept saying I've never been to court for those charges, never. And they kept saying she's not competent to stand trial, she don't understand the severity of her charges, she's not competent. And so I had to tell her, I said, listen, B, I will F you up if you keep trying to force me to take these charges. And then she backed off, and then they thought about charging me with terroristic threats again. And in the end, they had me sign off on a form to voluntarily commit myself to a forensic unit just in case I was telling the truth about who I am, who my family is, any kind of resource, having triplets, like any of that kind of stuff, right? But that goes back to what you were saying, like when they're looking at the socioeconomics of, okay, did this person own a vehicle? Did this person have rent, mortgage, like the socioeconomic structure? And it's not always like that, but I really do believe you when it's really like that, because I've been there at court before where they'll hold you for like 6 weeks on criminal trespassing charges, where you don't go before the judge, you don't get a phone call, but then they're like, what are you going to use as collateral to bond out? Like, do you have a card? Do you have a savings account? Like, they ask you these questions. And I'm like, if you don't help me, like, one thing I'll say is I have a good sense, even when I'm off my meds. I'm a little buku shot out, but I have good sense. So I'll ask questions like, how you gonna hold me for 6 weeks for criminal trespass and then try to make me pay you a fine? You better let me go. You've given me no phone call. You haven't taken me to court. But people don't know that, and they don't know their rights when their rights are violated. Like, that is part of the due process of law. Here in Georgia, they will hold you as long as they feel like holding you. One, because they're hoping that you confess to somebody else. Like when I was at Georgia Regional, one of the other things that they did, they brought in nurses assistants, which looked like interns, these young girls and guys who are looking to be nurses, and they would come on the floor and ask us about our case. And I was like, I'm not talking to you about my case. I haven't even been to court. If I'm facing 20 years, last thing I'm going to do is talk to an intern about my case and about my charges. And they come around like 3 or 4 times, and they almost label you as disruptive, unruly, if you don't want to talk to them. But you got to get to the point in life where you just so tired. Like I didn't wake up one day. No, I did. I woke up one day and I was radical. And I say it like that because I got tired. Well, until you get to the point of being tired of the way that the system is designed, you'll probably stay with your feet planted in one spot and not do anything. I got tired of watching all my friends go to prison. I got tired of constantly going to jail. I got tired of being harassed. I just got tired of it all. I got tired of having a college degree and a bunch of certifications and making more money up north than I was making in the South. I got tired of going to work doing the same thing as my white counterparts. I'm getting paid 13 an hour. They getting paid 30 an hour, and being told when I said something, having my contract cut short. I got tired of all of it. And so when you start getting tired of it, that's when you start vocalizing and being verbal about it. Because until you get sick and tired, you'll let anything happen. If they say if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And I think in the movement, that's what it's really about. Like, what are you standing for? What is your truth? Can you be consistent with it? Are you scared to speak up? Like, what's the worst thing that can happen with speaking up? They kill you. We all got to die at some point.
Right.
Like, do you want to leave a life of legacy or a life of bullcrap? Like, what do you want to say that you did with your life? I shopped every day. I went to the mall and bought 6 pairs of shoes each day. I hung out at the BET Awards. Guess what? I can say all of those things, except for the BET Awards. I used to get tickets and give them away and go sleep at my friends' mansions and stuff, right? But I was tired. Like, that lifestyle wasn't suiting me. I wasn't making the money that people thought I was making. Everything was fake. Not just me, but a lot of the people around me. Half of it was still drug dealing. prostituting, when you backstage and you watch some of your favorite artists tricking off with girls who are underage, like all of that. Like, and I was just tired of it. And I didn't, and I always say that my mental health and homelessness was my way out, because when I'm in a psychotic state or psychosis, there's nothing that I have to do or be. I can talk to myself, I can smoke cigarettes, I can drink coffee, I can do all the things that I've been told not to do. I can sing, I can dance, I can walk through the bluff in a two-piece bikini and not care, right? And so it's like, when I'm like that, there's nothing to be. I don't have to be a mother, I don't have to be a daughter, I don't have to have any goals, I don't have to have any aspirations, because we're taught to have all of these goals. And if you go to school and you have a family, some of my family members ask the question to, like, my son. We get on Zooms and they're like, "So Bryce, which college have you picked out?" Like, so when you come up in an environment where you're supposed to go to college, not an option. You're supposed to have a career, not a job. Like, if you come up in those kinds of environments, there's some pressure that happens, and pressure bursts pipes, right? But it's like, when you get sick and tired of the status quo and blending in, whether it's family or friends, you'll stand up. And the only ones calling you radical are the people who are afraid, because all we do is stand up for right is right, wrong is wrong, and we stand up for justice. If you saw a white boy getting beat down, you probably would stop them and say, "This ain't right, man." And so it's like, when you're out here, people label us as being racist. They label us as being radical. They label us, they label me as being a lesbian. And somehow I'm like, me? That's the story? Oh, but they'll come up with whatever to try to knock you off your square. And really, that's just their fears. The only thing that separates us from the people who sit at home every day and do nothing but watch TV is the fact that we have faced our fears and we out here in the movement. Period. That is it.
You can keep going if you want.
But I'm just saying, like, even when it comes to the over sentencing, like, it's the same thing. Who is going to stand up for you? These people are going to prison doing life without parole, and they get these girlfriends on the outside who end up being their only advocates, because they don't have friends writing them, they don't have family writing them. It's like, I got a whole everything. That's from one inmate, who writes me all the time. And I had to introduce their family to people that can help them. Like I am one person and we can do this together. And I am one person. We gonna fight for them, but y'all gotta do something. You gotta get in this fight, because it's like, we losing too many people. We losing our men, we losing our women. They're sitting here taking the women, making them lesbians. They're making the men homosexual, and there's nothing wrong. I support the LGBTQIA community. I'll say that, because I believe some people are born that way and some people are made that way. You go to prison, you're in prison for 10 years and they rape you and they turn you out and everything else, and then you expect these men to come home and behave the same way that they were before they went in, or you send them to prison so early that they don't know anything else and they question their sexuality. These men are going in at 17 and 18 and coming out at 30 and 40 and 50. What else do they know? And that's the part of their life. So now when we have people not making babies, their sperm don't work anymore, and the women, the women go in and get so tired of men and the BS, like, it's a perpetual cycle, and there's no way to stop it right now other than to be a part of the movement and to be revolutionary. We aren't fighting the same fight that our ancestors fought. People think it's the same, but we're not. This ain't a black and white thing. This is a spiritual thing. This is the fact that people think that it's okay to oppress other people. This is the fact that people think it's okay to make people slaves. This is the fact that people think it's okay to pay people. They'll go out there and protest sweat lodges and or sweat camps when they're paying these kids 10 cents a day to make shoes and to make socks and stuff like that. But they don't say anything about how they're treating the prisoners, guilty or innocent. It's okay to have y'all picking cotton, or like you said, at the chicken farms. Like, that ain't okay. That is not okay. It's
No,
traumatic.
you're absolutely correct. Absolutely, I agree with you 100%. And it's a lot that we can do, but it has to be done collectively. It just has to be done collectively, and we have to understand who we are and tap into our own selves, tap into that God energy that exists within you, because we only the physical manifestation of those who came before us. Now, to just go off on a little bit, sidetrack a little bit, talking about our ancestors. This is why I always say beloved ancestors, because a lot of our ancestors weren't nothing. You know, they were just like those people today who are gatekeepers, and they are the manifestations of that past energy as well. You had people that you had our ancestors that were house slaves, telling on everybody. Some of them participated in whipping their own family members with whips to prove their loyalty to their oppressor. Then you had slave patrol assistants that were our ancestors. So this is why I always say beloved ancestors, because when you because I'm making a point here, I'm trying to make a point that when you doing what you're doing, when we're all doing what we're doing and building a united front, we are those energies and vibrations of those who done the same thing before. When we leave, the best thing we can do, because you said the key word legacy. Legacy is just not words. Legacy is your soul, your energy, your vibration, your footprints, and your handprints into liberation for our people, that we pray it will be passed on to your sons, daughters, grandchildren, great grandchildren. This is why I always say, we have to embrace these babies. I look at every baby as it's mine. That's why when I talk to people on the phone that have children, I say, "Where's my man at?" or "Where's my girl at?" You know what I'm saying? Because I want to send that energy. We don't see. We've been taught we don't have that type of power, but we do. When we send that particular energy to people, and we raise them. We raise them from the dead, and that's on all levels. That's on all levels. This is why there's no caca whatsoever. We don't have time to separate language, and I've never saw a war. And my father, he was shot in the head in Korea. My cousins been wounded. My uncles and everything, they had their eyes and stuff shot out in wars and all this type of stuff. But I've never heard no one say that while they were in battle and shooting and fighting the enemy, that they had to watch their language. Never heard anything like that. I never heard anybody being court-martialed for running across the battlefield fighting for using profanity.
So
So
that's true. And I'm a firm advocate of our language, meaning our language creates our world. You can have a conversation with someone, and in 5 minutes, you know everything about them if you listen to the word choice, the way that they enunciate, um, how they the details that they may use or utilize, the difference between use, the difference between utilize, if they understand the difference between and or. And when you go to court, it's very important to understand language. If you go to write a report, it's very important to understand language. When you're speaking to the government, as opposed to when you're speaking to the media, it's a totally different set of language. Although you're speaking English, how you write and what you say out your mouth, it creates the world. So when I go to write business plans, I usually say things like community stakeholders, faith-based business, um, community leaders, but I like that word, community stakeholders. That is part of the language that I use in business plans. When I write a report, I may say currently convicted felons or returning citizens. Like, it's a big difference. So when it comes to profanity, profanity usually is used for a shock value, for emotion. It stirs up something on the inside to get your point across. But when it comes to language, there's some power in language. There's power in the type of fonts that we utilize when we write our name. Like if I change, like something as simple as me changing this background, it makes our names look totally different compared to that background with the yellow contrast. So it's like when we look at language, we have to look at all of it. And when we start impacting public policy, that's nothing but language.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you. Because um, most of the times, all of my documentation is formal, all of it. And anywhere you go or any arena that you in, whether you getting credit repair, whether you are stenographer in court, whether you are doing a proposal, whether you're writing a grant, it's certain diction and lingo that has to be implemented to allow the people that you're corresponding with to understand and to let them know that you understand the lingo, that you understand that particular dialogue and that language that they use, and that's in everything that we do. Me personally, when some people, when they're frustrated or when they see stuff happening, they scream out loud or whatever, like Marvin Gaye say, make you want to holler. What I do is and the way I say it just on my show is what a lot of people feel inside. When I talk about and I show people, talk about people's mothers that they've had their children snatched and they've had their babies slaughtered in the street, whether it's by people that look like us, gang violence or police terrorism or whatever, or domestic violence. That pain that they feel, I express that for them to let them know I feel what you feel. you know it's because it's no formal way to express that pain. Now when I'm somewhere else or I'm making a speech, or depending on the format, depending on the arena, depending on the situation, the venue, the platform, or whatever, i'm able to I'm able to blend in. I've learned that from, I've done the Toastmasters and all that. I know about all of that, but my lane is where I'm at today. I was built for this. I was sent here to be a flamethrower. I was sent here to be, a front lineman, and so the rest of us can get through and block and protect the quarterback. And then if I'm on defense, I'm blitzing. I'm coming straight through. You know, Everybody don't have that. That's not everybody's assignment. But at the same time, like I said, I'm a student. I learned a great deal from you. I learned a great deal from now I ain't gonna say no lot of people. I'm not even gonna do that. There's only a handful of people that I actually have my ears to the ground with. Because when you surround, if you want to know somebody, look at the four people just closer to them, and that's that person.
I
That
know who
is
the
that
four people are
person.
that's the closest to me. I know hundreds of thousands of people, and I'm a loner. Gregory and Bryce, they're about the closest people to me.
Right.
But
And see, but I'm gonna tell you this, and a lot of people that will view this will be able to attest to it. Your son, as young as he is, because he's probably been hit twice, but you can get a better understanding and response from him than you could me. See, one thing, his spirit is more pure than the adults. So he's more open. He hasn't had all of these experiences, so he's able to respond with a pristine heart. His response, because sometimes I know you probably have already had this experience where you know you might be feeling down. You may not have said nothing. He probably run up to you and sit up on you and hug you because he already knows.
you're
He
right
already
about
knows.
that.
I
This
gotta give.
COVID,
I gotta give mama this energy. I gotta give her this energy. Or he might just say, or grab you by your hand and take you to the kitchen to get some Kool-Aid. He really don't want the Kool-Aid. He just want
to
you to
hold my hand.
feel.
Yep.
Yeah, he wants you to get back into that rhythm. He wants you to
You're
get
right.
back into the vibration. And see,
You're
we
right.
this is why I'm saying we have to sacrifice our lives for these children
You're
because
right.
this is the last. This is the last. I'm talking about the very last of the children that have an opportunity to set things straight. After them, by that time, the two, three generations ahead, they will be so engulfed in metaverse, virtual reality, chipped up, robotized, not able to have children, you know, and the annihilation process has finally taken its course, and the social orders is will actually reign. So we have to do this. We have to do this. We have to give them a shot at the title. Give them a shot at the title. You know, it's
I
okay to
agree.
spoil our children. Everybody else do it. Everybody else spoils their children, but they want us to correct them all the time. They want them. They can't. When they're in school, if they're sitting down and and somebody that doesn't look like them tried to give them their twist of their history, and it doesn't fit right with their spirit, and they move around and they don't want to hear that. That's thing, they go to the office. This is how it's set up. Go to the office. He's hyper. Let's put him on medication. Let's put him on this Schedule 1 8 Ritalin, which is gonna lead. He's gonna be speedballing by the time he gets in middle school. Then he's gonna try weed. Then he's gonna try alcohol. Then he's gonna try gang violence. Then he's gonna try gang rape. Then he's gonna get in trouble joyriding, got a gun in the house, you don't know about it, and then the penitentiary comes. This is how it is set up. So that's why I'm saying these, these agendas. This is why I say what I say. This what brings rage, and I know how a lot of other mothers and fathers feel. That, unfortunately, some of them have to on their child's birthday, it's no cake. They got to go to the
Yeah.
cemetery. They have to go to the cemetery.
Yeah. And speaking
You
of,
know,
I'm gonna have later on we're gonna do a 2-part show with Georgia Moms United. It's at least 30 moms. We can't have them all on one show at a time, but they've lost their children to police brutality, gun violence. So I was speaking to Mrs. Robinson, who lost her son. Her son wasn't even arrested. He wasn't even in custody. And the police officer went and found him, like hunted him down and shot him in the back of the head and murdered him. And there's been they refused to reopen the investigation. So it's like, this has got to stop. And we've got to shed light on these kinds of stories and cases and make sure that we do our part in helping to get the word out. because it's so much bigger. It's all intertwined. That could be my child. It is my child, right? Because they're all our children. I'm someone's child, you're someone's child, and you my child, and I'm your child, right? Because if we gonna have each other's backs, then we gotta have each other's backs, and that's what we missing. We missing out on the village principles. um
Right, right,
Everybody always wants to equate the village principles to, oh, well, I could beat you and your mom wouldn't say nothing. That ain't just village principles. I wasn't a child that grew up being spanked all the doggone time, but I was a child that grew up with computers in my elementary schools. And I'm 40, I'll be 43 this month. So you do the math. I was a child where at 15, when they first started with the desktop computers, my mother made sure that I had a $5,000 desktop computer to do my work and to do half my classes work as quiet as it's kept. So it's like getting us to the other side of the learning curve, and keeping us on track. Some of it's socioeconomics, but some of it's just being resourceful to, like, because I don't have it like that, but I figure out a way for my kids to have everything that they need, everything that they need. And I don't qualify for any programs, but I figure out how to get my kids what they need. They have the iPads because with this changing world, they need to understand their world. But guess what? They got stuffed animals, they got cars that they got to push, they got army men, they got some old school stuff too, because they
right.
don't understand the yin and the yang of the world. And so often these kids don't understand the yin and the yang, and they grow up and they're robbing people because they see a video game on TV and think they need it. They have to have it. I remember this young kid. He was mowing our grass. Me and my ex, he used to mow our grass, and he broke into our house and he stole like two of my laptops, the flat screen TV, a Nintendo Wii, a PlayStation, a bunch of shoes, and all of these things. He went to prison. He was 17, and I wasn't gonna press charges because I didn't want him to go to prison over some things. But he was from his family were illegal, and they deported him to Mexico. So could you imagine? And he ain't never lived in Mexico.
Mm,
He wasn't a citizen, but he spent his whole life here in the U.S. and all for some shoes and some clothes and some toys. You risk your life. So some of this stuff is harsh sentencing, and some of it is lessons learned. Like, damn, like, damn, we losing our kids to video games, either them sitting in front of them all day or them feeling like they need to rob somebody to have them. That's a damn moment. And they know what they're doing when they're overpricing these things and putting it out there and creating competition amongst everyone. So we just got to tighten up and do better. We got to love on each other, and not just make it about chastising each other. We got to love on each other. We got to reaffirm um our children, our friends, our family, because people are always dealing with secret battles that you don't even realize that they're dealing with. And what other people, especially the most angry person in the world, whatever they say out their mouth says more about how they feel about themselves and how they really feel about you. And we got to stop taking
exactly.
half of this stuff because it ain't even personal. It just is what it is. And so I'm grateful that you show up on this show because I learned so much from you. I think that you are an intellect beyond your years, beyond your youth. I thank God for your experiences so that there's a balance of the two. And I'm so grateful that you are always willing to show up and share openly and honestly where you're at and your knowledge and your truth. Because so often we get this knowledge and truth and we hold it in and we don't share it. And we wonder why society is like it is.
Right, right. You
So,
know, but you said, when speaking of the police terrorism, the mothers, uh, I met Leighton Boykins' mother, Tony Franklin Boykins, and the mother of Vincent Mario Truitt,
yeah.
and Kendrick Johnson, and the father when they came to D.C., which they had the rally, which really practically nobody really attended. I know that Jennifer Lewis, she came and spoke, and but other than that. the support was almost at zero, and this was in front of the Capitol. I mean, it was just a handful of people. Myself and Brother Irritated Genie attended, but it's we are all, everybody's, will say it's a damn shame and it don't make no sense what they're doing, and these youths are doing this and doing that, but you got to ask yourself, what are you doing to participate in the uplifting, and raising the vibrations and frequencies of these teens, as well as some of these young adults? Because I'm going tomorrow night's video is going to be primarily focused on domestic violence, because domestic violence and young families, primarily these young men, are at an epidemic level. And I've never experienced seeing so many young brothers and sisters taking each other out in relationships and marriage than ever before. And we have to find a way, because the solutions are very, very easy. This is why I know they don't want no change. You build trade schools, vocational schools, coding in every city. You get one in Atlanta, DC, you get them, and you make them mega size. You make them stadium size where they can have CDL training, cosmetology, plumbing, HVAC, electricity, barbering, all of those things, and have scale jobs, union scale jobs pending completion, and then give them a stipend while they're in there. That will stop at least 85 to 90% of the violence in the streets, because there will basically be few people on the streets. And then that's when you deal with those that don't want to comply, that continue to want to participate in being a cancerous energy in the Black community. Then that's what prison is for. Those who refuse, to want to be a part of society on a productive and positive level. So you never hear any politicians talk about this, and I've confronted all the male candidates about this, and the mayor. None of them have, with the exception of one that I can call him anytime, but the rest of them can be bought. That's how I know this stuff is a game, and people that look like us are largely responsible for protecting, the hierarchy to keep us oppressed and keep us saying hope alive and Black Lives Matter and all of this type of foolishness that our people buy hook, line, and sinker every day.
On that one, we got to go. We're 2 minutes
okay.
over.
Okay.
Thank you. And you're right. It's our mass genocide. So thank you. Power to the people. Thank you, Tshaka, for being on. And we'll see y'all next week.
Yes.
like that.